are you guys doing? This is Ryan. Welcome back to the channel. You're looking at right here, this is my silver stack, one of my first investments in a very neat asset, and that is silver. It's a precious metal, and I'm actually coming to the conclusion, even though I love silver and the history it has, to sell this asset. In this video, we'll talk about the origins of silver, how it's been used for money for many years, and actually the word silver is translated into money in 14 different languages, and how the term debasing a currency comes from the Roman Empire, when that government would put base metals like copper and zinc into precious metals like silver and gold to dilute the money share, just like we debase our currency today when we print more money. Even if you look at today, a penny before 1982 is actually worth 2.2 cents. If you can find those pennies, the melt value is actually worth double what the currency is worth. So given all those attractive properties to this kind of asset, why am I selling my silver? We're going to talk about that in today's video. Let's get into it. Alright guys, here it is. This is my silver stack I've been working on since 2013. Silver was my very first investment as I got out of college. I just knew I needed to do something with my money besides just leaving it in a bank account. Becoming an adult during the economic crash really made me weary of the financial system as a whole. We had massive falls in real estate and stock market prices, and I became fearful in those assets, and that caused me to buy silver, which is actually the wrong thing to do, because you're actually supposed to buy assets when it's scary to buy them. It would have been a very good decision to buy real estate and stocks back in 2013 instead of these precious metals. And a lot of people in the precious metals community are very die-hard on the investment and think it is the best investment and like the only investment they hold in their portfolio. 6 months ago, I already sold my gold for around $1,500 an ounce. And I actually went out and bought Tesla stock at $200 a share with that. So that brings me to now this run up in silver price at about $24, $25. Really makes me think, is it time to sell my silver? And in this video, I don't want to waste any of your time, and I want to tell you why I don't have a longer term bullish thesis on precious metals right now, and I actually think peak sentiment is as good as it's going to get right now. Now again, I could be wrong. This is just what I do with my own money. This is not financial advice, but this is for fun and education, and I love dialogue down in the comment section. I buy most of the silver in the low teens, $13, $14, $15, $16, around there. I did buy a little bit more, around $20. So I don't really know where I own all of this. I have all the documents over there. I'll have to get together with my accountant to make sure I'm paying the proper amount of taxes as I sell this. But the biggest thing you have to understand with precious metals in any commodity is that the price is really driven on supply and demand. Right now, precious metals have relatively high demand, and the price could still go up from here, don't get me wrong. But when we look at a year from now, I don't see the same bullish thesis playing out like I see right now. Demand is very high in precious metals right now because things are fearful. There's a lot of fear with the whole COVID situation, what's gonna happen with the economy. We're during a political election right now, and we're watching our government, again, print trillions and trillions of dollars like it's nothing. So that is pushing a lot of supply into precious metals. On top of that, we have a slow in demand, which I don't think people are really talking about. So this is making the perfect storm come together for silver. There are times when precious metals like silver and gold perform very well, and it's always driven by short demand. And right now we had a very short demand happen during the coronavirus outbreak. We had production slow, and especially in Mexico, mines were shut down for a long time, and actually 23% of the world's supply comes from mines in Mexico. And when you look at the silver mining business, a lot of people can produce silver profitably underneath $10. And as the price continues to climb, that's going to bring more miners into the market. Then you're going to have the macro trend of the COVID epidemic slowing down, and all these miners in countries like Mexico, and I just don't see the demand continuing to rise as fast as the supply chain will kick up. I've explained this a few times on the channel, but I'll explain it again in case you're new to the channel, is that commodities and equities go through cycles. So equities being things like the stock market, and commodities being things like silver right here in front of us. Commodities run for about 10-year bull cycles. So commodities can be a great investment when it's in the proper cycle. And commodity bull cycles are really triggered by shortness in supply, and usually because the price for that commodity was so cheap for so long and very hard to mine profitably. But we've not seen that until the COVID epidemic, and that's why I can't build a bullish thesis around it. And what happens is when commodities continue to slip to the downside and get cheaper and cheaper, it allows more disposable income for the populace. The less the raw materials cost in our life, like gasoline, food, corn, wheat, sugar, soy, things like that, the more disposable income we will have. And this allows to a lot of money that can flow into equities and innovation. And that's why we're 10 years into a stock bull market run, and I'm so bullish on the next 10 years in tech and innovation. And I feel like even though silver could go up a little bit higher from here, I'd rather just sell it now, take my small amount of profits, and wait for better times to put that money into the stock market and get much higher returns that we're likely to see in things like tech and disruptive innovation. When people say things like there's so much money printing around, how could you sell your silver? There's gonna be massive inflation. But also if you look at a stock, a company can really control the amount of shares it has outstanding, and they can even shrink that. So the inflation argument works for both stocks and things like precious metals, in my opinion, and even cryptocurrencies, which I'm also an investor in as well. And even as this pandemic eventually does end, and one day it will end, there's this thought of this looming recession, and recessions are really good for precious metals. I think you have to go back and look at things like the Spanish flu, which occurred in 1918, and also we had a world war during those times. Shortly after the Spanish flu, which occurred in 1918, we went into the roaring 20s. And I think it's so funny how I feel history is repeating itself, because you're seeing disruption in so many ways like people did back then. You had people going from the horse and buggy to the Model T. Now you have people going from the internal combustion engine to a self-driving battery car. Or you have things like retail totally innovating and Amazon becoming a tech giant. And even something like a refrigerator was a major innovation back in the 20s. Crazy things were happening, changing the way people fundamentally live then, and I feel like it's happening the same today. And if I had to choose where I want to put my money, I'd rather put it into the future, which is going to be brighter, innovative, and more effective, than have something like this in my portfolio. I still do own gold in like an IRA. I definitely think it deserves a spot in the portfolio, and I definitely will be back in the metals sector again. And my investing thesis will still be around the supply and demand chain for commodities and precious metals. And what does it actually cost to profitably make the product come to market? I just think this is too profitable right now that the supply will continue to flood, and I just don't see how demand can keep on rising when the pandemic's over, when the election's over. Being an investor and looking more forward thinking into the market, I just don't see those things playing out, and I could be wrong. Something very bad could happen, and maybe I should keep a portion of my money into something like this in case something bad happens. Let's say we go into a world war. But also an asset like cryptocurrency would perform well during those times as well, and that's actually a pretty nice size of my portfolio as well. And I think it's a superior investment because it has a lot of properties of precious metals as being used as money in more of a finite supply. But it also has that tech play on it where it's disruptive and innovative and will romanticize more venture capital. It's almost sad that this day is coming. I'm selling my silver. This was a fun project for years, and I really enjoyed going back and look at how I was putting money aside, and it was my first investment ever, and saying, I'm gonna delay this gratification. I'm not gonna buy something for myself today. I'm gonna put this money aside and I'm gonna use it for something in the future. And it just so turns out in the future, I'm gonna use it for a different kind of investment. I don't know exactly what kind of investment, but I have a general idea where the money will flow. And guys, let me know down in the comment section. I know a lot of people are gonna disagree with me. If you agree or disagree with me, if I'm making valid points, please just give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so YouTube can notify you every time I upload a video. But do you really value the supply and demand of commodities when you invest in them? I really think too many people just focus on the fear aspect of it, that things are gonna be bad, they're gonna print a lot of money, and therefore you should own precious metals. Time will tell. I document everything here on my channel. I've made some pretty good calls on this channel if you've been following me for a while. And I don't know if this will be another one, but I'm almost so confident in what I'm thinking is I've been looking at some future contracts of gold and considering going short on the metal. Because there's actually some decent contracts I've been able to find that if gold's like 10% lower in a year, it actually puts those contracts into the money. But I don't typically play options and I'm not that skilled at it. But looking at those contracts, I found it to be appealing given my investing thesis. So let me make it clear. Silver has lagged gold during this run, and therefore I wouldn't be surprised if it went to like $30 an ounce. But I just don't see it breaking out and making new all-time highs. And precious metals investing is like such a grim outlook. I almost think like, I'm scared to see what the world looks like when silver is $50 an ounce or $70 an ounce, because that just means that there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the market. We know the government's going to continue to debase the currency, and it's actually funny if you look over here, like I have coins that were minted before 1964, and what happens is coins like this Kennedy 1964 piece, actually was minted with a lot of silver in it, but because the government continues to debase the currency, they can no longer make their currency in silver. And it's actually a fun fact, the word debase currency actually comes from during the Roman times when they used to inflate the currency. They would put a base metal. A base metal is like copper or zinc or nickel, into the currency. So they would put it into silver to dilute how much currency was out there, to try to trick the people. And usually things like this are done so governments can fund their programs without directly taxing the people. They just debase the money or print the money. And it's actually still a tax on the people because they pay it with a loss in purchasing power. When there's more dollars or coins chasing the same amount of resources, you don't get the same bang for your buck. It will take more dollars or coins to get that same resource. So it would be great if my timing is I get out of silver near the top of this run and we get another pullback in the stock market and I can throw a nice tranche of money at it. That would be great timing, but either way I think I'd be happier with the move the next 5 or so years as things play out. So that's about all I have for today, and I'll see you guys in my next one.